Hey everyone, this is Dawn. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make 3 cards using the Cape Cod card making stamp set. Okay, so this is the stamp set and it's got 3 separate stamps for the sand and the sea and the sky. And I'm going to show you how to add color to each of these stamps and do multiple colors in each section. Okay, so I have a piece of white daisy cardstock in my mini Misty, and I'm just going to start with the sand. This is a completely new stamp set to me, and so I'm seasoning it first by rubbing a microfiber cloth on it so it'll take ink. And the first color I'm going to use is shortbread. And then to add multiple colors, you'll need some sponge daubers. Okay, so I'm just stamping that out, and then the next color I'm going to add is toffee. Okay, so you just lightly dab color just in the sections that you want. So I'm just adding some toffee to the top of that stamp to create some definition to the sand where it's going to meet the water. Okay. Another trick for getting a solid, almost solid stamp like this to get a decent stamped image is to make sure you don't have any bubbles when you load it onto your block or onto your Misty door, so that you see me pressing the bubbles out right there. And that way you get even inking. And I forgot to season it, so you'll see I didn't get even inking. And then I remembered, oh, I have to season this one. So seasoning just removes the coating from production, and you only have to do it once, and it makes it so that your stamp is ready to take ink. So if you notice that your stamp is, the ink is beading up on your stamp, just go ahead and hit it with your microfiber cloth, or you can rub it on your arm, and then it should ink up and give a clear impression. Okay, so you see I had to shift that stamp. When you load it on to your Misty or your block, make sure that you're kind of covering a little bit of the stamp below it. It'll look like you're stamping right on top of it when you line everything up, but you're not. It'll meet it exactly at the right place. Okay, so the first color I used was Lagoon, and now I'm going in with Sapphire. And in retrospect, I shouldn't have been so precise in that line. A messy line is a little bit better. It gives a more natural look. So keep that in mind. But it worked. And then I'm going to go in with a blending brush and add some Seabrook to the white caps so they're not quite so white. And we'll smooth all those out. And the lines look quite harsh right now, but when the ink dries, it smooths out. And some colors lighten up, so don't let that scare you. Okay, so now I'm lining this up and I'm making sure that the bottom part of that stamp for the sky is covering the horizon of the sea. Okay, so again, I'm pushing all those bubbles out, and then I'll season. This time I remembered. Making sure it's all loaded on there smoothly with no bubbles, or as few bubbles as possible. Now I'm going to use, let's try peach. Really, I'm just experimenting with color combinations, and let's just see what we get. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with Sundance. Okay, and this time I'm going to put the ink kind of in the center. And a lot of it's not going to stamp out because it's supposed to be, I don't know, sky and clouds and sunset. So but that's okay. And then I'm going to go in with some paprika for some more detail. So we'll add that right at the horizon, right at that line where it meets the sea. And then we'll do some at the top as well. So I'm going to create all these stamped images for 3 cards first, and then I'll show you how to pull them together to create cards out of them. So I'm going to go in with some honey butter and then soften out that section in the middle so it's not quite so white. And I know the whole image is a little bit crooked, but I'm going to trim around it to straighten things out. Okay, so the first color I stamped was honey butter for that same sky image. This is for another card. And then I'm going to go in with some Sundance. And we'll do that at the top and the bottom. And I think that's good. I'll soften it up just a little bit with the leftover ink that's still on my brush. That's honey butter. And then we'll move on to the next stamp. I did find that when you're using your MISTI, it is easier to line everything up if you start from the top and then work your way down. And it might just be because when I'm filming, I can't be right completely over my stamp. I'm kind of at an angle away from it. So that's part of it too. But I just found it was easier to go from top to bottom rather than from bottom to top. And I was able to line things up pretty easily that way. So I went in with Capri for the ocean, and then I'm going to go in with some sapphire. And I like that. And I like the white cap look on that, so I'm going to leave it the way it is. And then I'll go in and do some sand. So I'll set this up. So I'm showing all the inking, and then I'll show most of the stamping for these cards. So I'm using shortbread first. And then the assembly, I'll speed through because it's pretty basic. Okay. Then I thought, what if I added a little peach to the sand? Sometimes the sand is sort of peachy colored. And then I'll do some details with toffee. And add a little bit more, make it a little bit darker where it meets up with the water. And we'll call that good. Okay. And it will get lighter as it dries a little bit. Okay, let's do another one. All right, this one, I'm going to start with ballerina for the sky. We're going to do a purple sunset. Then I'm going to go ahead and add some grape to the top and the bottom of this sky section. And this time I'm kind of feathering upwards when I'm doing the bottom one and down when I do the top one to kind of soften that line. And then I'm going to go in with some flamingo. And I felt like the contrast between the grape and the ballerina was a little bit too much. So I'm going to add a touch of flamingo in between. And then I'm going to go back in with some more ballerina and soften that up. Okay, we'll see how that dries. Then I'm going to add the water. And this time I'm going to start with Glacier. And then I'm going to pull in some Lagoon. And I like the overlap areas where those two meet. That color's good. Then I'm going to go in and do the sand. And we're going to start with shortbread. And then we'll add a little toffee. Nope, instead of toffee, I decided to try Sundance. Wasn't completely crazy about it, but it was okay. All right, let's make some cards. So I have my Altenew Ultra Sticky Mat, and I'm going to do some color blending on these die cuts from the Cape Cod Embellishment Collection. So I pulled a paperboard palm tree. And these are kind of, they're craft paper kind of, but they're a heavier weight. And I'm just inking with a detail blending brush. I'm using sage, and then I'll go in with some pine to add some color to this embellishment. I love these little palm trees from this embellishment collection. Then I'll go in with some toffee and we'll ink up the trunk. Just add a little definition and contrast and sort of making it darker on one side. Okay. All right. So now we're going to do some stamping on this inked panel. Okay, so I'm going to stamp my sentiment, and I'm just going to use the thank you from the set. I really like that font. It's so pretty. I'm just going to stamp that in black ink. And then there are a couple of stamps that are, first I'm going to do the sigils, and that I'm going to stamp them in mist. And then there are a couple of small stamps of seagrass. One is taller than the other, so I'm going to go in with some Seabrook. Wasn't completely sure about this, so I wanted something that was really faint. Plus, I wanted everything to be rather light on this card with the softer inks that I used. Okay, let's go ahead and build our card. So all of the cards will be similar to this one. I did wind up using a wider border after I went through and assembled this card. I went back and trimmed down that art panel so that I had a wider black border. So you'll see that in the final pictures. But I'm just assembling everything with Tombow tape runner. And then before I mount that panel, instead of using foam tape, I'm going to use some foam. This is just craft foam. It's a thin craft foam, and you can get it for really inexpensive price on Amazon. So just cut a piece that was slightly smaller than that panel, and I'm just gluing everything down with wet glue. And that way you don't use as much, you don't go through as much foam tape, and it keeps it stable in the mail so it doesn't get smashed. Okay, I'm going to call that done. We added our palm tree. We're good. Okay, and there's that wider border. Okay, so I'm going to take you through these next two cards pretty quickly. So I have my sticky mat out again, and I have this fence image from the Cape Cod embellishments. And there is a stamp that's just like this, so you can achieve this look with just the stamp and a little masking. But I want it to get kind of a 3D look, so I'm using the paperboard. And I've inked that up with some toffee, and then I'm going to trim it down. I'm going to use half on one card and the other half on another card. Okay. So now I'm going to do a little stamping. I've trimmed that panel down so that everything's straight. I'm going to stamp thank you. And then I'll stamp a couple of tufts of seagrass. And this time I'm going to use sage, a little bit darker. And then we'll go in with that shorter bit. And I'll use pine ink. Lots of different ink colors, but creating these colorful cards with only black and white cardstock. Pretty cool. Okay, then we'll go in with mist and we'll stamp our seagulls. And then the assembly of the card is exactly the same as the other one. So here's some close-up shots. I like that Capri ink for the ocean. Okay, and then for the last card, I've got all my stamping done, and that fence is going to be on the right side with a couple of tufts of seagrass and I stamped the seagulls also in mist. And there's that finished card. So all these supplies can be found in my online store. I'll make a list with links in the description below, and you can do some shopping and do some experimenting of your own with this fun stamp set. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate it, and then you'll be able to find all of my videos. I publish twice a week, and thanks for watching.